Okay, so this is the second part of the Grammar 2 quiz review. So remember my recommendation, I feel like it will be really good studying wise if you try it yourself first before you watch the video, but playing along is fine too. Don't forget, if you turn this in, then you get the credit recovery with your quiz. You have to do it after if you're interested in retaking the quiz, so might as well do it before. All right, so sentence 1, according to John, nope, that's not it. Sorry, a great many environmentalists. A great many environmentalists are bothered by the encroachment of civilization on wilderness areas. Okay, so what do we have? No question mark, so it's not interrogative. Doesn't start with what or how, so it's not exclamatory. You, a great many environmentalists are bothered by the encroachment. Doesn't really work. And so what we really have is passive voice, right? Remember, if you have the be verb and the en ending, which is weird because this one sort of feels very much, it's a little irregular, that is your, that's one of your clues, okay? All right, so we have our verb is are bothered. So with passive voice, we want to change our verb first before we start moving stuff around. So we start from the right? Our verb is bother. We always have the be plus en. And we're actually out of stuff here. So we used our main verb, we used our be plus en. We don't have any additional components of this verb string. So we only have to say now if it's past or present. This one is actually present, right? Are is present. It's controlled by that first word in the verb string. So even though bothered looks past, this is a present tense verb. Okay, so then we will cross out the be plus en when we rewrite it, and we're only going to end up with a one-word verb. Okay, and we'll figure out based on our subject then if it's singular or plural. Okay. All right, so with passive voice, after you transformed your verb, then you want to look for that by prepositional phrase. And we do have the by prepositional phrase in this sentence, right? By the encroachment of civilization on wilderness areas. So you know we're going to cross out the by, but what comes after it is going to end up being our subject. Okay? All right, so what I did here, I have two prepositional phrases after the encroachment. Of civilization, right? That's modifying the encroachment. Whose encroachment? Civilization's encroachment. On wilderness areas also belongs with encroachment, right? What kind of encroachment? It's wilderness areas encroachment, okay? So whose and what kind? So this is a really unusual one because these two prepositional phrases are both going to move with this subject back where it belongs. And then we have our direct object, a great many environmentalists, which is going to take its place. Okay. All right. So let's start with our verb, our subject, the encroachment of civilization on wilderness areas. All right, so our new verb is the present tense of bother. The encroachment is a singular thing, right? It bothers. Be really careful. This is a common thing on the SAT. Areas is plural. So it might feel a little bit like, they bother, but really the subject is the encroachment. The object of the prepositional phrase can just cause a little confusion. All right, so the encroachment of civilization on wilderness areas bothers a great many environmentalists. Okay. All right, so we said this transformation was passive voice, and we're going to make it into active voice. So let's go ahead and chart it out. So bothers is our verb. We have those two prepositional phrases of civilization on wilderness areas. Both of them are adjectival. So we can draw our lines. So going from left to right across the top row, the encroachment's noun phrase 1. So bothers was our verb. A great many environmentalists are different than the encroachment. So that's going to be noun phrase 2. It's our subject. We know we have a transitive verb because we have that noun phrase 2 in the predicate. These were both adjectival. And the great many environmentalists are who or what are bothered, right? So that makes that our direct object. So with only a direct object, no object complement, no indirect object, we have pattern 7. Okay, all right, next one. According to John Proctor, what would Elizabeth Proctor's justice freeze? All right, so nice little reading comprehension check kind of question, like you've seen, I'm sure, a million times throughout your high school career. So with a question mark, it's interrogative. Can it be answered with a question, yes or no? No. Has a question word, it's just kind of embedded in there after that introductory prepositional phrase. And that can certainly happen. So just be careful, you know, if there's an introductory prepositional phrase, sometimes that will obscure to some degree that question word, right? So just watch out for the question mark and then just double check. All right, so we do have a question word, so we want to replace it. Elizabeth Proctor's justice freezes, if you recall, if you read Arthur Miller's play The Crucible, he talks about it freezes beer, right? Alcohol has that very low freezing temperature. All right, so he's saying she is super cold, his little wife there. All right, so we're going to replace that question word, and then if it's not the subject, and it's not, right, who or what's doing the freezing, it's for justice. It's not, so we have to move some stuff around. All right, so would freeze is the verb. Elizabeth Proctor's justice is kind of stuck in the middle of that. That's going to go before it. Would freeze, we'll combine, we'll group back together. Beer is going to get moved to the end. We're not going to change, though, that introductory prepositional phrase because it's adverbial, right? According to, like why? How do you know? Either of those questions are going to kind of result in the same answer, that this is adverbial in its function. So it retains its initial position, right? It keeps that emphasis. Okay, so we will keep that where it is. According to John Proctor, Elizabeth Proctor's justice would freeze, and then beer goes at the end there, right? And with exclamatory, it's always something from the predicate that's been displaced, right, for the purpose of emphasis. All right, so let's chart it out. So would freeze is our verb. Introductory prepositional phrase, which we've already clarified is adverbial. Draw our lines. Noun phrase 1, right, whole thing, Elizabeth Proctor's justice. Would freeze is our verb. Beer is different than the justice, right? We have an action thing, right? It's figurative, right? But it's still different than the justice. Okay, so we said this was adverbial. The justice is the subject. Would freeze, because there's a noun phrase 2 we know is transitive. And the beer, what's frozen, it's the beer, so that's the direct object there. So we know we have sentence pattern 7. There's no indirect object, no object complement. And we said this one was interrogative. I think I said exclamatory, sorry about that. Exclamatory does the same thing. In this case, the question word was part of the predicate, which it often is, but not always, right? Which is why we always check to see. Sometimes it can be the subject. All right. The empty lot on the corner should have been cleaned by either several gangs of kids or the Department of Public Works. Really complicated sentence, but I wanted to throw this one out just to kind of emphasize that this works even when you have a lot of modifiers like you do in this sentence. Okay? All right, so this one is passive voice. No question word, you can't add you, there's no what or how kind of anywhere in there. So we know it's passive voice. What's your verb? Should have been cleaned. Okay, that's your verb. So going from right to left, we have clean. we know we have the be plus en. We have a have, which means we have another en and a have. And we have shall is the present tense form of that, but we know it was in the past. Okay, so write it that way, and that's just because it's sort of a reminder that this is a past tense verb, and then when you recombine it, you won't accidentally like flip-flop it the other way. Okay, all right, so when we cross out the be plus the en, we end up with should have en of cleaned. Okay. So this is not one when you have the modal auxiliary. You don't have to worry about singular or plural there because it'll be the same either way. Okay. All right. So a couple of prepositional phrases that we have to check out. Remember, or is also a coordinating conjunction. So we have the of kids tells us what kind of gangs. Of public works tells us what kind of government. And or really glues together the department and the gangs. Okay, so we have that either or thing that's going to glue that together. All right. Okay, so that whole mess is after your by prepositional phrase, which means that's all your original subject. Okay, on the corner is telling us which lot, right? It also feels like a location, but in this case, right, the adjective always wins. So we'll flip-flop these two. Either several gangs of kids or the Department of Public Works should have cleaned the empty lot on the corner. Okay. All right, so all we have to do now is chart it out. So you know that's our verb. On the corner goes with lot. Of public works goes with department. Of kids goes with the gang. And either or is our coordinating element there that combines that whole thing together. Okay, draw a little midline. So this whole thing is noun phrase one. This whole thing, the gangs and the department, are different than the lot. So we know the transitive verb, subject, and direct object. So once you clarify all the modifying elements, this is actually a remarkably simple sentence, even though it looks extremely lengthy, but it's because of those modifying prepositional phrases. So this one was passive voice. And this is with only the direct object there, it's a pattern 7, because the cleaning doesn't add the corner descriptor to the lot, right? So that's why it's not an adjectival object complement. It's just a simple little modifying construction there. All right, last but not least, sentence 8. Last winter, the ski season was almost ruined. So you'll notice a pattern on the back, right? Passive voice is the hardest, which is why we're gonna do 3 of them here. No question mark, no how or what. Even after that introductory adverb, still no how or what, right? We don't have, we can't add you. You last winter, the ski season was, that doesn't make sense. So we know we have another passive voice. Okay. All right, so our verb is was ruined, right? We have that little adverb in the middle of the verb, right? And so remember when you're writing out your sentence, the verb string, you don't want to include that, but you want to add it back in when you write out your sentence. So our main verb is ruin, and we do have the be plus en always. And that's it. So we don't have an additional be plus ing, we don't have a have, we don't have a modal auxiliary, but we do have a tense, right? Was is past. So when we cross out our be plus en, we're only going to have a one-word verb. So ruined, sorry. He ruined, they ruined, neither is going to change. It's not going to be affected by singular or plural. Okay? All right, so now we're going to rewrite, we're going to look for our prepositional phrase, our by prepositional phrase, right? Last winter, the ski season was almost ruined. We don't have one, so we'll add one in. By hot temperatures. Okay. All right, you can be generic, by something, or you can add in a specific one. That's fine. Just keep in mind, if your addition is extremely complex, that might affect kind of your resultant sentence that you're charting out. So you did it to yourself if you're not generic. All right. So hot temperatures is going to go where the ski season is. We'll keep this adverbial, this little adverb introduction, and we'll put in our new verb. So last winter, not a prepositional phrase, but it is an adverb. So we'll keep that at the beginning. Last winter, the ski season. Nope. we have to flip-flop. Sorry. Hot temperatures. Ruined. Almost, right? The ski season. So this is one with the introductory adverb and the little adverb that was interrupting that passive voice verb. This is one that's a little tricky, right? To kind of keep all of that in mind. So I always like to double check, do I have everything? Is the ski season where it belongs? Is that where? So that you make sure you get that right. Okay. All right. So we said our verb was ruined. We don't have any prepositional phrases, so we can just start charting that out. Remember, almost was interrupting, but we only have one word verb, so it really doesn't belong with the verb, right? We want to separate it. And same thing with this adverb at the beginning. We're going to separate those out. Hot temperatures, noun phrase 1. The ski season's different than the temperatures, so that's noun phrase 2. We know we have a transitive verb. Almost is an adverb. Last winter is an adverb and function. That's our subject. And the ski season is what was ruined, so that makes that our direct object. Pattern 7. Don't forget, you won't always have pattern 7 when you have passive voice, but you will always have some transitive construction. So it could be pattern 8, you might have an indirect object, could have an object complement 9 or 10. Always, though, a transitive verb, because you're going to take your direct object and your subject and you're flip-flopping them. None of the others have a direct object. Okay? All right, so good luck on the quiz.